All right, well, Yuma, hello. I'm Marianne Cosgrove. I am the CEO of Humanists Australia, and tonight I'm talking to you about various ways in which I and Humanists Australia have been supporting refugees and asylum seekers. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking today on Ngunnawal and Ngambri land and that sovereignty was never ceded. I pay my respects to their elders past and present and recognise their continuing connection to culture and country. I acknowledge and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here. I will listen to your voices, do my best to understand your stories and lived experiences, and speak up when I see you suffering from injustice. So let's explore why should we support refugees and asylum seekers? One of Humanist Australia's four mission goals is supporting people persecuted as a result of their humanist beliefs, both in Australia and working with Humanists International overseas. We recognise that losing one's faith or coming away from your religion can put people into serious danger when they're in parts of the world. And so, as humanists, we like to support those people. And there are other groups in our community who suffer because of their identity and particularly suffer at the hands of people with strong religious viewpoints. So, our mission as humanists is to help support those people. Humanists Australia have published what we believe are the core humanist values, with descriptions that help explain what humanism means to our members. These 9 core values are largely based on the declaration of modern humanism. They are compassion, community, reason, diversity, resolve, integrity, culture, environment, and forgiveness. In particular, we value diversity. We believe that the strength of humanity lies in diversity, and we welcome people of all ethnicities, sexual orientations, gender identities, and cultural backgrounds, and strive to ensure that they feel included. I believe that when we welcome immigrants into Australia, Australia becomes richer as a result of the cultural heritage that those people bring in to our country. We value compassion. We have compassion for all humans and other feeling beings. We strive to understand their point of view and individual needs. We speak respectfully to each other, even when we disagree. And that value of compassion speaks to us to say we can empathize with people who are suffering in their home countries and have fled because they've experienced trauma and violence at the hands of the people in their communities. And we in the process of feeling empathy for those people, we want to be able to support them. Now, we also value reason. When making decisions, we use evidence and rational thought to assess the likely impact of our actions. And that means that although we'd love to be able to help everyone who comes to us for support, we have to recognise that there are millions and millions of refugees all around the world. And unfortunately, it's not possible for us to help everyone. And so we have to have structures in place to help us reach out to the people who we can help and help those people, but also set limits. We need to set limits at the national level and also limits on our own personal support for refugees because we can't afford to burn ourselves out by trying to help too many people, and also limits on how our organisations help refugees. Another big reason for me for why I want to support refugees and asylum seekers is the meaning and fulfillment that it brings to my life. It gives me a sense of purpose. I'm able to volunteer in a way that's meaningful, and I can make personal connections with the refugees and asylum seekers who we're supporting, but also with the others in our communities who are working also to support those people. So there's many different ways that we can, as individuals and organisations, support refugees and asylum seekers. I'm going to speak about some of those ways, and some of them are very little effort, but don't have a great deal of impact unless a lot of people come together on them. Others are more more impactful, but also require more effort. And I'll talk about the whole spectrum of those. One of the things that's of moderate impact and moderate effort is a letter of support. Humanists Australia has written 2 letters of support recently. One of those was for ZO. Z is an Iraqi woman who fled from her family, who was threatening to kill her or force her into marriage. She is currently stuck in another country without legal status. She's afraid to apply for the papers for UNHCR support. She doesn't have the legal papers that she needs from the government of the country that she's stuck in. She has been supported by an organization called Secular Rescue, which is one of the organizations that is helping people who've lost their religion, who have been attacked by their co-religionists and are trying to escape from the country where they are, or who have been able to get out of that country and are trying to get refugee or asylum seeker status elsewhere. So Zed actually contacted us through Meetup, and we wrote a letter of support for her in December last year. I got in touch with her via email just recently, and she says she's still hanging in there, but doesn't yet have official status. Another letter of support that we wrote was to MA, who is Ajmal. Ajmal is with us now. Would you like to speak, Ajmal?
Yeah, of course. I just want to thank you, both of you, Marian and Leslie. Like your support really helped me actually, and I got my status approved already.
Oh, that's great. Good to
Yeah,
hear.
I'm really thankful to you, both of you guys, and definitely very obliged because it was very short time for you guys to trust me and go through with this process. But thanks again. I really appreciate your support.
I would add that in both of these letters of support, we had multiple conversations with the people concerned and also with supporters of those people so that we heard their story from different perspectives before deciding whether to write the letter of support or not. Ajmal, do you feel like you can talk about why you needed to seek asylum?
Yeah, of course, because I grew up as a Muslim in Pakistan. So when I arrived in Australia and after a couple of years, I start questioning my religion. And then few things comes up to me which really challenge my belief, and then I step up to the science and logic and reasoning. And when I shared this thing with my family and my community, they wasn't very happy. So they kind of like boycotted with me and they threatened me.
Mm.
And I kind of feel like I'm not safe if I go back. And then literally I face few things like which make me to realize that there's no way back now. So then I look up to the authorities here. So if they can protect me and they give me some safety. Yeah, so yeah, that was my background of story. So then last 10 years I was hanging in this whole process. It was a really long time. It was sort of like open prison. I was free, but I wasn't free.
Mm.
Like so this fear of like execution was always on me. So but luckily lastly like just like last week I got this news that my application been approved, and in this whole process, as I said, like before, to your letter was literally mentioned in the Odyssey, and when they write Odyssey and why they're approving me, so they say like I'm a member with the Humanists Australia, and they mention Les and Marianne. So yeah, thank you so much for your support. Yeah.
You're welcome, Ajmal. It's fantastic being able to really make a difference to people's lives. Another thing that we can do for people is proposing for a visa. Now, this is a fair bit more effort than writing a letter of support. There are particular criteria that the refugee must fulfill. They must be living outside of Australia and outside of their country of origin, and they must be subject to substantial discrimination in their home country. A proposer of someone for a special humanitarian visa is responsible for paying for their flights. They're supposed to meet the person at the airport and provide accommodation for that person on arrival and assist them with finding permanent accommodation. They also need to introduce that person to services. in the process of doing these visas, it's a hugely lengthy set of forms and a whole lot of supporting documentation, and yeah, a lot of paperwork to get through. It's really quite intense. In 2019, I was approached by Decca. Decca is, she was in Somalia at the time, and her husband Mahmoud was a Somali professor. Mahmoud stated on social media that a scientific response to the drought might be more effective than praying for rain. And as a result of that and similar statements, he was imprisoned in a Somali jail for 2 years. Dicker contacted me in my role as president of the Council of Australian Humanist Societies in 2019, asking for help. And I had quite a few conversations with Dicker via email. And then I referred them to Humanists International, who have a program called Humanists at Risk for supporting people. In addition to that, several of the humanist societies in Australia and CARS got together and found some funding, and we sent it through to Humanists International. Now, we sent it through to Humanists International to support their Humanists at Risk program generally. They don't accept donations for one particular person. So we had to accept that Humanists International would investigate their case, but would not necessarily approve them. They need to do a lot of research before they will work to get someone out of a country. But they did that, and they found that Mahmoud needed support and was he fulfilled their criteria for someone that they would help. And Humanists International was able to extricate him from Somalia to a third country initially, and Mahmoud was eventually well, we Humans Australia proposed Mahmoud for a special humanitarian visa in November of 2020, which was just the month before Humanists Australia was publicly launched. So it was in the very early days of Humanists Australia. And this case is one reason why we have supporting humanists at risk as one of our mission goals for Humanists Australia. So we proposed him. Unfortunately, he was knocked back for resettlement in Australia, but his proposal for resettling in France was accepted. So they are now living in France, and I saw a lovely photo taken on the same day as this one on public display at the in Copenhagen at the Humanist International Conference there. So
Do you
the
know why
next
he wasn't accepted? They weren't accepted here.
They gave us no information at all, Paul. Unfortunately, they just said he was turned down. I've since realised that you can go to the administrative review tribunal to appeal. I didn't know that at the time, or I would have. But at least Mahmoud and Decca and their 3 children are safe now, so happy ending for them. AA is Syrian. Born to a Sunni Muslim family. He's actually with us tonight. So, would you like to speak about your experiences?
Yeah, of course. Hi. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
First of all, thank you very much for speaking about how difficult it is to gather the papers and do the application for the papers because
Bit of a nightmare.
you, yeah, and I remember how difficult it was to use Adobe Acrobat to sign the applications, and now I'm looking at my initials, Adobe Acrobat, so I have to remember it even here,
Nice.
for sure. For sure. So basically, I am originally from Syria, from a specific city called Aleppo. Aleppo, specifically during the war, it did not fall into any side 100%. It was between multiple factions that are fighting, that all of them have totally opposing views, from like extremist Sunni like ISIS, Al Qaeda, to extremist Shia Alawist like the government basically, to extremist what do you call it, Kurds, which they refuse everyone else. And here I was hugely exposed to multiple ideologies, and I have seen them in real time because, you know, during the war, when the things get bad, you see the people on their with their true colors. And I started slowly becoming more secular in my views, more secular in my approach. And that was not a very good idea to share with the people while you are in Syria. I had to learn it the hard way. I had to escape. There was no other way, and the only like country which I was able to escape to was India, due to the availability of the embassy within Syria for it. Other countries were not allowing us to even cross them, legally or illegally. It was extremely difficult. When I came to India, I tried to contact the United Nations. Unfortunately, United Nations in India is one of the most how should I say, like they have so much pressure that it's nearly impossible to get an answer from them about anything. Like you have to keep persisting with them so much until you get an answer. Luckily, in the end, they have managed to accept me to register with them. And as you can see, like how it is saying asylum seeker, I was supposed to become a fully recognized refugee, I think 5 months ago, but recently the development in Syria where supposedly the revolution won, it did not win. It just basically shifted from an extremist Shia government to extremist Sunni government, which is basically ISIS, but they are trying to act like they are not. And but the United Nations said to me, like, don't worry, you will provide complete protection. You will not return to Syria. You can still apply there. I tried to apply to the private sponsorship in Canada first, but it closed. This is the great Justin Trudeau when they closed it for 1 year on my luck. Then I was going to find actually a sponsorship in US using the help of I think ex-Muslims of North America. I think if I'm mentioning the organization name correct. But then Trump closed the Welcome Corps system, and then someone from there they said to me, keep contacting organization. I think I connected 150 organizations differently from Canada, from UK, from just to ask them. I think like 10 responded, and actually two managed to help, which are both from Australia, Australian Humanist and a Faithless Hijabi organization. Thankfully, they gave me the opportunity to apply. Thank you, Marianne, to at least present my case. Faithless Hijabi organization, they tried, but they said to me, like, truly, we don't have a place, but we can give you a support letter where you can show it to another organization or the Australian government. So basically, when I shifted to India, I had the opportunity finally to express my freedoms and especially the speech, the freedom of speech. And it seems many people do not take it lightly that I have spoken about certain things related to the government, let alone related to religion. And especially with the new government that came, that is basically it was like a faction of ISIS, and now they have called themselves the Syrian government. They are really targeting anyone who said anything about them in the past and in the present. I'm in contact with my family there, and they're saying, don't come back. They will directly catch you, and they will interrogate you, and they will know that you have spoken something on Facebook since 7 years, even if it's one comment, to tell you why did you say that, what does that mean, why did you stay in India? You know, India and most of the Muslim world don't go along, unfortunately, that much comparing to other countries. So I think this is enough summarization. I have a problem. Marianne knows about it. I blabble a lot, so I will try to cut it short. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, AA. So I want to talk now about one of the most impactful, but also the highest effort things that a community group can do to support refugees, and that is the CRISP program. So this is launched as a pilot program in mid-2022. It's the Community Refugee Integration and Settlement Pilot, and it gives groups of locals the opportunity to welcome refugees into their community, supporting them from day one of their journey in Australia. CRISP is now a permanent part of Australia's humanitarian migration program. And here we see a headline from the ABC News about Juan, who arrived in Australia to a stocked pantry and kind faces. And tonight we have with us Kimo, who had that experience as well, being supported by our community group, Rainbow Refugee Action Canberra. Dave Warner, who's with us tonight as well, is the coordinator of the group, and we're mostly members of Canberra Choir. So we set up the group. We needed to register the group with CRSA, which is a government organisation that runs the program. We had to individually do police checks and working with vulnerable people cards, and a significant amount of training. Before Kimo arrived, we spent quite a bit of time getting ready with doing a fair amount of fundraising. We had to set a budget and try to reach enough funding that we'd be able to spend against that budget in order to support whoever it was who came into our group. We don't get to choose the person with the CRISP program. You are assigned a person. Our group does have specializations in understanding the needs of LGBTIQA plus people, and so we requested someone from that community. We needed to provide at least initial accommodation with some furniture, household equipment, a week's supply of groceries, and a phone with an Australian SIM card in it. So this is a photo of our group with Kimo on the very day of his arrival. I have two photos of Kimo here, and in both of them I've blurred out his face. Kimo is not his real name. Kimo may be in danger if his family and community find out where they are. So so I've blurred their face. Yes, so it was just wonderful being able to meet Kimo at the airport. We met him at the gate with a bunch of flowers. We had cake, and it was just a fantastic experience. You can see how happy Dave looks in that photo. And then in the first week, we spent a lot of time, and with 8 members of the group, we were able to spread all of the effort across the 8 different members. So everyone's been supporting Kimo in their own way. The very first thing that we needed to do was submit the paperwork for Centrelink so that Kimo would get their Centrelink allowance as soon as possible. Setting up the bank account turned out to be a nightmare because there was a slight difference in the name that was on the different documentations. One bank rejected them. One bank couldn't deal with an immigration card. Dave, do you recall the details?
Oh, sufficient to say that much, really. It was a tricky process, and we had to choose on recommendation from other groups who'd gone through similar difficulties. we ended up with one of the mainstream banks, which we were hoping to avoid for ethical reasons, but in the end, practicality won out.
Yes, so the bank account, Centrelink, various support services, a medical checkup. I took Kimo for a tour around town and we had a picnic. And there's been a lot of social connection, and we helped Kimo navigate their way around the various public transport options, buses, trams, bicycles. Before we hear from Kimo themselves, I'll just go through this as well. We've lately been helping Kimo enroll for study. We've got English lessons set up. One of our people is looking at giving Kimo driving lessons down the track. Kimo's interested in doing swimming lessons. Kimo's already volunteering. I'll let Kimo speak to that if Kimo would like to. And with potentially some paid work in the near future. So I'm going to hand over now first to Dave and then to Kimo. Dave, is there anything else you want to talk about regarding the CRISP group, forming that and how it's made you feel?
Perhaps I would add a little bit of context for my own personal involvement. I suppose it was a reaction to government policies that I thought were very unfair and unjust and inhumane for many years under both brands of government that we have in this country, both Labor and Coalition. They've both been promoting very inhumane policies, mandatory detention and offshore detention, and cutting social supports and financial supports to refugees and asylum seekers. So some of us in our group had a little bit of experience supporting a young gay couple a few years ago, and they had come to Australia separately and had become a couple and were sent off to Nauru and were in a hellhole in Nauru for many years, and to the point where one was very mentally unwell and was medevaced to Sydney for treatment. And thankfully his partner was able to come along and to be with him. And he recovered sufficiently to be housed in a house in the community in Sydney. And we were still able to support them from a distance, our group being in Canberra. But then government policy changed and their support was withdrawn. They had to move out of their house. And so we brought them to Canberra, where we were able to offer them some closer support. So that was some background experience for us looking after these two young men. Unfortunately, the lack of hope under the Australian governments of both stripes back several years ago meant that they applied to Canada instead under their community sponsorship program, and thankfully were successful. And they're now living in Vancouver. They've been there for the last, I think, about 5 years, if I'm correct, and they're doing quite well. So it was great news for us to hear that a Labor government was promoting the idea or supporting the initiation of a trial of the CRISP, the Community Sponsorship Program. And so several of us decided to form this group more formally than it wasn't a structured group previously, but under the CRISP, you're required, as Marianne pointed out, you have to register, you have to go through a certain amount of training and get the clearances. So we formed a group and then welcomed a few others. So there were 8 of us in the end. A minimum of 5 is required to set up a CRISP support group, of which there are now many, many around the country, which is great news. And the government has recently announced that the pilot program will be made a permanent part of our migration program. So, and that's in addition to the intake under other humanitarian programs. So groups like ours can welcome other refugees from many different places around the world. What I've got out of it, well, I have found it very rewarding. And I liked Marianne's graph where it shows both effort and reward. It is a lot of effort, impact and reward. It certainly has it means a lot to the person who can be relocated from wherever they are in the world to a community of support in a country that can offer safety like we can here in Australia. So it's been really rewarding, and it has taken up quite a bit of time and effort to get organised pre-arrival of our new friend Chemo. But it's been a great process, and we've really enjoyed supporting Chemo and seeing him thrive already in the short time that he's been here. It's just a wonderful thing to see. Thanks, Marianne.
I have to echo that. I feel already really close to Chemo. Hi, Chemo. I wish you could see their face because they're just lovely, and they've already just cottoned on to so much Canberra life. It's just been amazing to see. So, Chemo, would you like to talk? You don't have to, but go ahead and tell your story and how it's felt to you if you'd like to.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for letting me share my experience and my story. And also, I'm sorry because I had some problem getting in.
No
So,
worries.
yeah. So, uh, I would love to talk about my experience now, not like I wouldn't love to talk about my past because it's so horrible. So I would just talk about the good things that is happening to me and still no bad things. Thank thank to you all, the group. Like I could never be great. Like I'm very grateful to all of you for like helping me and doing everything that you could do. um I would say my experience would never be the same, would never be the same without you being here, like next to me, because I had a, like I didn't know anything here when I came. So you all helped me with everything. I got, and I had some problems with the bank. We solved this with like, and I did had a lot of vaccines because I like didn't get any like back in Lebanon. And yeah, it's it's very like homey with you. It feels like a cozy home. And surprisingly, I never felt like I belong anywhere, not in my home country or not even in Lebanon. And basically, I never expected to be belong in Australia, but when I came and I saw you all waiting for me in the airport, I saw the flowers, but I didn't pay attention to the flowers as much as I paid attention for your smiles. You all were smiling and you just wanted me to be here, and you just wanted to hug. And I just felt like as if like this is the family that I never got to meet and I finally met. And I cannot exactly tell you how I felt. I could never show you my feelings at that moment, but I I could just say that I finally felt like I belong somewhere, and I finally felt like someone actually cares and without anything in return. Um yeah, and it just, yeah, I think I think the CRISP program is something needs to be like needs to be something very big because it is big. And without the CRISP program, and without you all who volunteered to do this, I don't think I would be here volunteering as well, and actually playing tennis, literally not living a normal life, finally expressing myself, finally feeling like I am someone. I am I matter, I am someone important. I never felt like this before. And I finally now have the chance to go with friends, dress the way I want, talk the way I want, love whoever I want without being scared that someone would do something to me, or like my family would do something, or any. I finally felt like I am not in a box anymore. And I I I just feel like I finally have a life after being dead for so many years. And I have thank you. And I have tried to volunteer with a lot of things, and one of them was the the folk festival, which is which is awesome. I loved it so much because it showed me a lot, a big a big like a big um I would say a big part of the people here, everyone, the music, the connection, the dances. I never missed a dance there. I was dancing and dancing, and I was just smiling to everyone. I was helping kids with their like their workshops, their art workshop. I was just making some friends as well. There was a lovely queer people there who made me feel like they wanted actually to be my friend, and I was very happy. Um, I I just hope one day I could do the same as you guys and volunteer in the Chris program, and maybe like do something just the same as you did. Help someone who felt like they were lost their entire life, and I finally someone found them. Um, my experience was, I would say, maybe the best with you guys, because you guys were like my my family that I just got to meet. And Dave was like, I could never express how much I love you guys, but Dave was like, he was like, I don't know, I don't want to say my father because he's not that old. But I would say like my big brother, because he's tried so much to like just makes me feel like I am seen, and like makes we went like for one like one day, I would say like the second month, not the second month, the I would say the days, the last days, and the in the second month I am here in Australia. And we went to a cafe and we got some cake and some drinks, and we stayed and we talked about activities, and where I can do some stuff. Where can I like meet some people who has the same experience as me. And I finally went and played tennis without feeling scared, and I enjoyed the tennis so much. I went with Dave and we played tennis, and I made some friends there. And I kept going, and Dave was so busy he didn't go, but I kept going, and I think I'm better than him. I think so. uh, and yeah, I have been seeing a lot of trans people, and I sometimes look at them and see myself. But anyways, it just, I need a lot more time for me to figure it out by myself. But there was a lot of help from all of you, as well as Annie got so tired. I feel like she never said she's tired, but I feel like she is, because she did a lot. She she comes like every now and then and take me to the uni. We went like to most like to 3 unis or something, and we asked a lot about a lot of stuff, because I'm a bit like, you know, confused about what I want to get into uni, and we're trying like Annie trying her best to just give me all of the options. And basically everyone helped me with a lot of stuff. um Also, like, they got to introduce me to like a really special friend to me now, which is Kara. He's a very lovely person, and he's from like from the Middle East as well. And he's a he actually as well helped me a lot with a lot of stuff. And yeah, basically they opened a lot of like a lot of ways for me to go. And I'm just going to everything. I'm doing everything. And yeah, I'm loving it. That's all I can say.
So, Kima, you arrived in Australia in February, and within a few weeks, you were heading off to Sydney with Kara for the Gay and
Oh yeah.
Diaspora. Do you want to
Yeah,
tell us a
the
little bit
more
about that experience?
because I loved it so much, I forget about it. So yeah, after like some weeks from where I arrived, I was like, I was asking like, because I always saw the bride things on the social media, like the bride, when you walk with a lot of queers and stuff. And I was like, do we have one in Canberra? And they were like, yeah, we have, but it's like in a different time. And then then I think they said something about Sydney, and then they introduced me to Kara. And Kara was like, I'm going to there. And I was like, oh my God, can I come? And he was like, yeah, of course. And we went. And I, I, I still can't believe it. When I went there, I was like, I was just wearing some stuff, like wearing like a normal outfit, just because I I'm not used to like wearing something that I like, you know what I mean? So Kara and Jessie, which is my friend now, because she's like Kara's friends, and she was like, Kara and her was like, l- let's buy some like cute clothes to you if you want. And I was like, oh my God, yes. And I love the idea. We went to a store, and I basically got some cute, very cute clothes, and I really liked them. And I got them, and we went back, and we were heading off to the Pride. But I was like, they were like, why didn't you change? And I was like, oh, I didn't buy these clothes to wear them now. And they were like, no, you need to wear them now. And I was like, they are very extra. Like, I wouldn't be comfortable wearing them, because I would be, I just felt like it's the same as back in Lebanon, you know what I mean? So when I then they convinced me to wear them, and I went, and I was still uncomfortable with them, but not to a point that they forced me, no, but like still a bit uncomfortable. Then when I went to the parade and pride thing, and I saw what people are wearing and how beautiful it is. And I was like, oh, I am not wearing extra. Like it is what it is. I actually was very comfortable, and I was like, oh, that was a good decision to wear them. And I felt included. And when I was watching and seeing the love and just the this child inside of me, the 12, 13 years old chemo, um was was just standing there, not believing what they are seeing. And I never imagined I would be there watching love and feeling loved, and finally being with the people who I belong to, and without being scared of, even though I kind of inside of me felt scared, but I didn't let this fear, haunt me that much. So I just avoided it and enjoyed my time because of the trauma that had happened to me. But I still enjoyed every second of it. I danced and I danced, and I just felt like this is my moment, and I finally can dance with someone, and I can finally say that I am queer without being scared. Yeah, and that's all thanks to you, the Chris program, that made these all connections, so I can just do this.
That's just amazing, Kima. I have to tell you, Dave and I were pretty scared when you were up at Mardi Gras as well. It was like watching a child, a teenage child,
Oh.
leaving home to go out for the first time. It was like, so we want
Yeah.
you to have a good time and enjoy yourself.
Mm.
All right. Well, I'm feeling all choked up now, but let's go on with the rest of the presentation. I do really feel so close to Kimo. I think this will be a lifetime of friendship for us, and for the connections we've made within our group as well as with Kimo. So let's move on now to small ways in which any individual can help refugees and asylum seekers. One way to do this is by supporting the supporting organisations. One person can't make much difference, but when you're with a group of other people, that's when you have the impact. I've mentioned Humanists International and Secular Rescue and Faithless Hijabi. There's also the Community Refugee Sponsorship Australia, the CRSA agency that looks after the CRISP program. The Refugee Council of Australia supports refugees, as does the Australia Red Cross and the Australian wing of UNHCR. So you can make a difference by donating to any of these organisations. Rallies and protests is another thing where one person can do something small with a small impact, but when lots of people do it, that's when it has the big impact. Palm Sunday Rally for Refugees is one case where humanists can walk side by side with faith groups in this annual rally. They're held around the country. This is me with Canberra Humanists back in around about 2017 or so. We've got our humanism t-shirts on, something we like to do regularly. And here we are with Kimo. I've blurred Kimo's face in this image. With the Rainbow Refugee Action Canberra banner and with the Human Hearted Canberra banner as well. And there's some members of our group there and members of our humanist community. These rallies do make a difference because they change the political points of view. We heard earlier how both the major parties were terribly cruel towards refugees because they felt that that would win them elections. We have to show them that it's a political liability to be cruel. And this is one of the most tragic cases. Well, I'm getting all emotional again. You may remember the story of the Nadasalangan family. Priya and Nadis, along with their two daughters, Kapika and Tharnika, they were initially granted temporary protection visas, but they faced challenges. They were living in Bilawila for about 3 years and were supported by the community there and were contributing to the community there. But their visas expired, and Tharnika was only 9 months old when immigration officials raided their home at dawn, and they grabbed the family, flew them to Broadmeadows Detention Centre in Melbourne, and Tharnika spent her first and second birthdays in detention in Melbourne. In 2019, they were removed on from detention and were to be deported back to Sri Lanka, where they could have been killed. But the deportation was halted mid-air and the plane landed in Darwin at 3 a.m. after a last-minute court injunction. They were then taken to the immigration detention centre on Christmas Island, which had closed. They were the only residents of that detention centre. Then Prime Minister Scott Morrison categorically ruled out ministerial intervention to stop their deportation. But the Home to Below campaign was a grassroots campaign initiated by the community in Biloela, which gained significant traction and mobilised support. Mobilised support across Australia, including from politicians, activists, and community groups. There were numerous rallies and protests, and I went to one of those protests in Canberra. Yes, so there was a real turning point in the way politicians regarded asylum seekers with this particular case. Prominent politicians, including Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, voiced their support for the family's return, and Albanese pledged to allow the family to return to Biloela if his party won the 2022 federal election. The very first time in decades that one of the two major parties expressed any kind of support for refugees as part of their election promises. Following that election, the family was finally allowed to return to Biloela, ending their 4-year struggle against deportation. So one of the things that you can do with very little impact is to vote. And again, your single vote doesn't have very little effort. Your single vote doesn't have much impact, but when you get together with many others, that's when the impact happens. Wondering who to vote for? Here's a table which shows the positions on immigration of the two major parties, plus the Greens, One Nation, and the Fusion Party. I mention the Fusion Party particularly because it's a party with humanist values, and two well-known humanists are running with the Fusion Party in this election. One of those is Drew Wolfendahl, our director, and another is Frank Jordan, who is with the Committee of Humanist Society of Queensland. So the Labor Party is still doing offshore processing on Nauru. They prefer administrative detention with community management if possible. Their approach to detained individuals is for them to have dignity, but the default is still detention. The coalition, LNP, is in favour of both mandatory detention and offshore processing. They want stronger detention. They want no release for criminals ever, even after they've served their jail time. And they're after deterrence. They have an emphasis on security and strict monitoring. The Greens are against mandatory detention and against offshore processing. They would abolish detention and offshore processing. They want humane processing, and they want legal and health support for immigrants. They are after dignity and community-based alternatives for individuals. One Nation Party is in favour of mandatory detention and supports offshore processing. They want mass deportation, a bit like the Trump administration in the US. They want no appeals. They want migration cuts. They want to reinstate temporary protection visas, and they even want withdrawal from the UN. Their approach to individuals is for immediate deportation with strict enforcement and no appeal rights. The Fusion Party is against mandatory detention and against offshore processing. They support responsible global citizenship. They uphold human rights, and they advocate for helping asylum seekers. Their approach to individuals is community-based alternatives with a humane and rights-based approach. Still not sure who to vote for? I can recommend using Vote Compass. You'll be asked about your views on immigration as well as on a number of other different policy areas, and the ABC's Vote Compass will place you on a spectrum with the major parties and recommend who to vote for.
In terms of the community independence, although they are independent, one of the things about the community independence is that there are some of their core things which are fairly uniform across them all. And I was wondering if this was or wasn't one of them.
Which this, Paul?
So I was wondering if the community, and if this, what we're talking about here,
Vote Compass.
no, not Vote Compass. You were talking about the different values of the parties, weren't you?
This party's.
Yeah, that's right. So I was wondering if the community independents, although they are actually each independent,
Mm.
the community independents, sometimes the media refer to them as the Teals, although they
Yeah.
prefer to be
Yeah.
called the community independents. That they do seem to have at least a core of things that they agree on, and one of them I think is climate. But I didn't know whether immigration was, and because when it comes to Vote Compass, the community independents aren't represented.
Yes, it's because there's so many of them scattered across all the different electorates. You need to take a look at the policies of the ones that are in your electorate for voting. I have not yet done my election homework. I have to admit, I haven't listed all of the independents who are running in my electorate yet. I do intend to do that before voting. But I do know that our independent candidate for the Senate, David Pocock, he is in favour of humane treatment for immigrants and asylum seekers and refugees.
Yeah, and he's quite unique in that, and because of Canberra, he's running in the Senate, whereas all of the other community independents, because of the way voting is established in the states, they can't run in the Senate because they can't represent a whole state. You know, they can't actually advertise themselves across a whole state. So the community independents are in all the other states limited to the lower house rather than the upper house.
Yes, so I recommend that you look up who's running in your electorate and check out their policies. So in summary, everyone can support refugees. There are quick and easy things that you can do to help support them. You can donate or attend a rally or vote for a refugee supporter. If you want to do something a little bit more intense, you could write a letter of support. Even individuals can do that. Those of you who are with other organizations can encourage your organizations to write letters of support. But I think the most impactful and meaningful way that you can really make a difference to a refugee and experience that amazing sense of connection that you get with the group and with the person that you're supporting is by starting your own CRISP group. And I'd be happy to talk to anyone who wants to learn anything more about what that's like and how to do it.
That's interesting you say that then, Marianne, because I was wondering, I was going to ask you about that. And, you know, being in WA, I belong to a group that's based in the Fremantle Library for English being a second language. So we welcome people, and often they are refugees. But we're not proactive in that we don't go out and help them. We're just there if they find us, and we then try to help them. And so one of the things for me that stood out in this presentation today is Chemo's English language is really, really good, and not just in the quality of his language, but from my experience with this group and the second language group, what they find difficult to speak about is their feelings and their personal things, whereas Chemo was able to do that very eloquently and for a long period of time. I was actually staggered at the quality of their language, and it makes such a difference when you're trying to integrate into a new country. If you have good language skills, this is just it makes a massive difference if you can speak the language reasonably well with grammar and without accent. And Chemo, demonstrated that in spades. I was just a bit flabbergasted, to be honest.
I will say, Chemo, you have demonstrated extraordinary initiative. I'm really impressed with how much initiative you've shown in getting yourself ready to come here and then getting yourself settled in. I mean, you've taught yourself English, you've taught yourself technology. You're just amazing. I'm getting all misty-eyed again.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
So, thank you very much for coming along, everyone. I really appreciate that you've come tonight to listen to refugees and asylum seekers and hear their stories and learn about how to support them. Please, everyone, give our asylum seekers and refugees a big hand. Thank you for telling your stories. If you'd like to support the work of Humanists Australia, there are 4 different ways you can do that. You can, if you feel like you are a humanist, you can join us as a member. If you'd just like to support our work, you can donate. If you want to find a way of helping out without time or money right now, you could create your legacy by leaving a gift in your will for us. We're partnered with Gathered Here, so you can write your legal will online for free with them. Or if you would like to devote some time to helping others and form caring relationships with other people while you do that, you can volunteer with us. All right, thanks again for coming. Visit humanistaustralia.org or to learn more about us or meet fellow humanists. Good night, everyone.